became a nonprofit about 4 years ago. Who here has heard about CCC? Okay. Couple. So our mission is to make Charleston a leader in climate action. And part of our work is breaking down what climate action actually is. I don't assume, but who here is familiar with the climate crisis and its basic scientific underpinning? Yeah. And what we do is we focus on this part of the whole issue because it's a big picture problem. There's a writer who describes the climate crisis as a meta crisis, something that's so all permeating, all encompassing, and it can feel very overwhelming. It touches every part of our lives. It's an international issue. And oftentimes people feel intimidated by that, feel like they don't really have any agency in that. But what I want to make clear is that we actually have a tremendous amount of agency when it comes to climate action when you're working on the local level. So the reason we're in this mess is that we have all this atmospheric pollution going out, your carbon dioxide, your methane, these greenhouse gases that are then trapped in the atmosphere, create global warming, more and more thermal energy being trapped on the planet each year, which causes climate change. All that thermal energy changes all of our weather systems or patterns, melts ice caps, et cetera, and that leads to what we're actually worried about, environmental and human consequences. So that's rising sea levels, that's intensifying storms, that's heat waves, that's drought, that's famine. But all of this is happening because of our systems. The reason that we're putting out all of these carbon pollutants is because of the way we build, the way we transport, the way we get our energy. And this part is not immutable. These are all created by human society and can be changed. The way that we live can and should and needs to be changed. These are the categories that there's a really good organization, Project Drawdown. It's a conglomeration of scientists who have measured each climate solution by their carbon drawdown potential. And they use these 6 categories, good enough for them, good enough for us. So when we talk about climate action, we're talking about these transportation, energy, food, nature, buildings, and waste. These are sort of all of the widgets that you can change to affect change when it comes to climate. So transportation, can someone name a local potential transportation climate solution?
Or transit.
Exactly, public transportation. So much of transportation issues comes from cars. Cars run on fossil fuels, we build our society around them. So the more that we can transition away from cars on the road, so that's public transportation, bike infrastructure, walkable communities, all of that helps draw down our carbon emissions from the transportation sector. And so all of these different things have local implications. Just the way that we expand our city, build our city, maintain our city, all of those can be changed. And so we're an activism group that has campaigns on things like a bike lane on King Street or a climate action plan in Charleston County that aims to affect all of these different things locally. The cool thing about local action is that you have so much more agency than, say, federal government. If 100 people call their city council member, the city council member is like, what is going on? This is insane. And that is a sliver of the population of Charleston. So you can really have an outsized impact as a local advocate. But today I've been invited to talk about a larger issue that's not just a local issue. This picture, minus the illustration, was taken about an hour away on the Edison River in Kennedy, South Carolina, in Colleton County. And what you're seeing here is what remains of a former coal plant. For 50 years, this coal plant was in this community, Kennedy's, population about 5,000, right outside of Walterboro. And it was polluting the community. It was causing health issues, asthma, increased mortality, particulates, all of the environmental justice issues that come with having a coal plant in the community. And Dominion Energy, our monopoly utility, is now pursuing a gas mega project on this site. They still have the land, and what they want to do is they want to build one of the largest gas plants in the nation on the Edison River with a new interstate pipeline that would be supplying it. So what I want to talk about today is protecting Candies and the ACE Basin from pipelines and power plants. So Dominion Santee Cooper. Santee Cooper is the publicly owned utility that also operates in that area. They were not legally allowed to collaborate until very recently. Who here has heard of VC Summer? So VC Summer was a nuclear plant project that failed, and over $8 billion was spent before it was clear that it failed. Part of the reason why we in South Carolina have the third highest energy bills in the nation is because we're still paying off the VC Summer debacle, which was the result of Santee Cooper and Dominion's progenitor trying to collaborate on this nuclear project. And so legally, our public utilities and our private utilities couldn't work together until a couple months ago when the state legislature passed a new energy bill that gave permission explicitly because they want to build this mega plant. It would be a 2,000 plus megawatt gas plant, which would put it in the top 13 or 10 in the nation of gas plants at 1,700. It would be located on the banks of the Oso River. It would be more than 4 times as capacious as that previous coal plant, and there would be a pipeline that would serve it. So the gas would come in from Mississippi across Alabama and Georgia into South Carolina. This map is a little tricky to see. What you're seeing right here in red is an existing gas pipeline that goes across the southeast but stops before South Carolina. What they are planning to do is double up the gas pipeline, have a new pipeline that cuts down south in Georgia and cut across diagonally into the low country through the ACE Basin to supply this new gas plant. The routes and the costs undisclosed. They have not put that information forward. It would impact communities, wetlands, rivers, and forests across the southeast. Pipelines are a disruptive process. You have to excavate deep into the ground to put in a pipeline. Require new compressor stations, which are risky communities. Compressor stations sort of release some of that pressure. They release pollutants and have been known to explode. And private property being seized through eminent domain would be a part of any new pipeline route. So whoever it cuts through, they have been vested with the ability to seize it if they see fit, the land. This is a stockholder presentation from Kinder Morgan, which is the company that builds pipelines. That's the only reason that we even know about the projected path, is getting access to Kinder Morgan's stockholder presentation. And notably it says here approved natural gas projects. Ours has not been approved yet. There's so many hurdles that still has to go through, but they said it's all approved. So what you can see is that we are here for 5. That is the proposed Candies plant. And it would cut across here. And you'll notice that almost all of these projects are in the southeast. The way I think about it is that gas power, there's still a lot of money behind it, money to be made, but a lot of the other states are not buying it. They see that it could be stranded assets, for all the reasons I'll talk to you about the rest of this presentation, about why gas is sort of a dangerous fuel to be investing in. But the southeastern governments will approve these utilities going forward. So all these new gas projects are sort of just happening in our area with a little bit up north. And this is the ACE Basin. This is just west of here, so Charleston's here. This whole area is considered the ACE Basin. And this is a really important watershed for us in the low country. A ton of protected land is here, sort of in the south of it, but if you look north, like this is all the ACE Basin. This is all not protected. But from a watershed perspective, all of the land here then filters down here. So it's all very important, and where they want to build the gas plant is sort of right smack dab in the center of it. So the pipeline would be cutting in just through the heart of the ACE Basin. Any questions about everything I just went over?
I have a question.
Yeah.
sort of already know some of the answers to this question, but you said that bill was passed, but the project is not approved.
Yeah, so basically we had like an extra hurdle here in South Carolina for public and private utilities working together.
Okay.
And the bill that was passed got rid of that hurdle.
Yeah.
But I'll be talking in a second about how there are still like the Public Service Commission and federal processes and just all of these things you have to do
Awesome.
to get a gas pipeline project off the ground. There's sort of an extra block that the legislature just took away. Yeah. Yeah, what I keep talking about is this is not a done deal by any means.
Yes.
So I just want to talk about a few concerns, a few reasons why we have good reason to be concerned about this gas mega project. So natural gas is a fossil fuel. The word natural is in it because we're harvesting it from the ground in the same way that coal is harvested from the ground. It does not mean it is healthy or good. Recent studies have gas power about as polluting as coal. There was this narrative for a while that gas was the bridge fuel, it's not nearly as bad as coal, next best thing to renewables. That's not the case. That was a well-placed narrative, but there have been many studies at this point about when you look at the whole lifespan of gas, from the fracking to the transportation to the burning of it, is just as polluting to the climate as coal power. So if we're serious about halting and reversing the climate crisis, we cannot be investing massively in gas power. It also exposes the neighboring communities to hazardous air pollutants. So this community in Candies that already dealt with the coal plant is facing down another big industrial plant that will put out fine particulates and formaldehyde, which will lead to more respiratory problems. Another area of concern is that utility execs have described the gas pipeline as an anchor for increased gas supply for the region. And what we suspect is that they want new industrial development that relies on having easy access to large supplies of natural gas to be built, like concrete facilities and whatnot, which would mean a lot of industrial development in the Candies area throughout the ACE Basin, which if you're an environmentalist is not really something you're looking for on all these pristine wetlands. Water resources, that's a big concern. So oftentimes these plants are cooled with a water body nearby, and this is again on the banks of the Edisto River. The utilities have not released any information about how they intend to cool this plant. So concerns are there about withdrawing water from the Edisto, which is already sort of at capacity in terms of folks drawing water from it. And also concerns about what will be discharged into that water. You have this big industrial development happening again right on the banks of the river. That is not good for one of the most pristine rivers we have in South Carolina, which was actually pointed out to me is just north, just upstream of where Charleston Water Systems gets our water that comes out of our sinks. So there's sort of a direct link that we have. There's concerns about the flooding potential. There was a quote-unquote 100-year flood just the other year on the Edisto River in Candies. And as you may know, 100-year floods are no longer 100-year floods. They're happening more and more often. So there's the question of what happens when this facility gets flooded, and also how much more flooding will happen if you degrade the wetlands around the area. Wetlands are really important to reducing flooding in an area. So all that damage could make the flooding even worse. And there's a ton of wildlife in that area. A lot of migratory birds use that area. Fish, it's pretty pristine right now, which is important. So there's concerns about contaminated waterways for the wildlife as well. And then lastly, costs. What you see here is the price of methane gas per month from 2014 to now. And this spike right here is the war in Ukraine. Gas is an international commodity. So all of these factors outside of our control can cause the cost of methane gas to spike. But utilities don't have to worry about that, because if the cost of gas spikes, they just raise our bills. They raise our rates. The structure we have right now with our monopoly utilities gives them no incentive to worry about that. But unlike something like solar power or wind power that is reliable and homegrown, much of our gas is imported. So the price of it is heavily dependent on all these factors above our control. The project is estimated to cost up to $2.5 billion for construction alone. And the thing about that is that we also tank that cost. The utilities can pass all costs on to the customers through higher energy bills, including the cost of the loan, the interest on the loan. We also pay that. Santee Cooper and especially Dominion. So Dominion has a direct profit incentive to build this costly infrastructure because they get a guaranteed return on investment. If they build a pipeline, if they build a gas plant, they're guaranteed to get paid. So that is sort of why they're driving so hard for this big, bulky fossil fuel infrastructure, because they make money off of that. They don't make money off of encouraging rooftop solar or things of that nature. We are ultimately paying the price for all of this.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Why? What is the source of the guarantee?
Yeah, so I have allies who are more in the weeds on these utility things than I am. But basically, if Dominion Energy builds a gas plant that costs $2 billion, they are guaranteed to get paid for building that. It's with the arrangement that we have through the state government and the state legislature with our monopoly utilities.
So the state is guaranteeing that the state will pay them to build this,
Or rather, they're guaranteed to be able to have the utility bills cover that cost. And we're the ones who pay, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of the tricky thing with these private companies that are monopoly utilities. We have no choice but to use them, but they are for profit. So they will get whatever return on investment they need from us. There's a body, the Public Service Commission, that decides in utility cases. So whenever they have a rate increase, they have to go to the Public Service Commission to get it approved. The most recent bill actually has changed that a bit. They're moving towards an automatic rate increase process, so there's not like a hearing for each rate increase. So, yeah.
So I used to work for a public utility.
Oh, great.
I was the rates analyst.
You probably know more than I do.
Well, it wasn't
Yeah,
in
we
South
do.
Carolina, so it sounds like it's a little different. But whenever we went for a rate increase, they did not automatically approve it. We had to fight for everything, and they would chop stuff out if they thought it wasn't necessary.
Right. So I don't know all the details of the change that came recently, but it used to be, yeah, you had to have a rate case from the PSC, and you have interveners, usually from like environmental groups that are sort of the other party, and then in the case of South Carolina, it almost always is like a bit below what the May asked for, generally. The new thing, I think, still has some intervening, but has like a timeline requirement, and also you don't have to like, it's not a new case, it's different, the new system. It makes it a lot easier for the utilities to raise rates, essentially. And I can connect with people who have more in-depth knowledge of that if you're interested. Yeah. So this is the status and timeline. So utilities just recently got permission from the SU legislature for this joint gas plant. They have checked off the first box, but there are still many boxes left to be checked. The proposed plan now needs approval from the Public Service Commission, which, like I mentioned, is a quasi-judicial body, 7 people appointed by the state legislature that decide on all of our energy rulings. They have filed recently. We're anticipating the fall sometime to be this hearing. There's also air permits and water permits from state and federal agencies. And this is all just the gas plant. The pipeline expansion itself will also require extensive state and federal approvals. Though, of course, the concern in this current political climate is how easy will those federal approvals be? Easier than the past. And this is anticipated to be 7 to 10 years for full build out. So it won't be until the 2030s that the gas plant is operational for the first time. 10 years is probably like the most realistic estimate. So if they start next year, that's 2036 that actually come online. And that's kind of important too, because one of the arguments right now is we have this energy need and we have to move quickly. And that's why we have to be investing in the gas plants. But it's actually not moving that quickly to have this bulky thing that takes almost a decade to build. So this has sort of been the information about the gas plant. Anyone has questions on the gas plant and pipeline that you all have right now? Okay, well, I also want to talk about how we can win this fight. We have examples from all over about pipelines being halted, gas expansions being stopped. I'm reading a book right now called Gaslight that is about the Virginia gas pipeline that Dominion was trying to build. They put it forward in 2015, and then in 2020, it was stopped. Dominion also wanted to build a big new gas pipeline through the Appalachia in Virginia, and Dominion's from Virginia. They have a lot of power there, maybe even more so than in South Carolina. But thanks to grassroots opposition and a lot of people coming together, that pipeline was stopped. So we have a recent example of the Dominion pipeline that through grassroots opposition and enough people joining in, we managed to stop it. So it's not a done deal, and for myself as a climate activist, there's sort of no bigger threat to SC's climate goals than investing in this massive new gas plant that run for decades and decades. So I think it's really worth it. In terms of coalitions, right now we have been working with a number of green groups, Southern Environmental Law Center, Coastal Conservation League, Sierra Club, CVSC, Friends of the Yellowstone. We meet weekly, and we've been doing a lot of outreach in the Tandy's area, in the Walterboro area. We're sort of coordinating on the big picture plan for finding this gas plant. We at CCC also have a number of organizations we organize with, Low Country Solidarity Network, with some more sort of on the vanguard organizations, SC Tan Union, Charleston DSA, etc. These are very hardcore activists who are sort of on board with this campaign. And I have who else here because I need suggestions from the people here about who else we should talk to about this campaign, who else might be interested in volunteering a bit of time. And then I just want to talk about the actions that we have, as CCC sort of have lined up right now as we sort of get this campaign rolling in earnest, because it was only recently that approval was given by the legislature for this to happen. So the game's on now. And it's going to be a long-term project. We'll be talking about this gas plant in a year. I think now is a great time to really get the ball rolling, get momentum brewing. Because if we're serious about stopping this, I think this can't just be the proposed gas plant. This has to be the embattled gas plant, the controversial gas plant. That's sort of our theory of change right now, is that one, grow the movement, get as many local folks involved as possible who are environmentalists, are concerned about the checkbook effects on their utility bills, just anyone who has an investment in this, sort of recruiting them to the movement. Pressuring Dominion Energy. Dominion Energy has enjoyed a level of, it feels like kids' gloves a lot of the time, the way we treat our utility. They have a lot of power in the legislature, they donate to a lot of people. But when I talk to everyday people, there's a lot of discontent with Dominion. From the tree cuttings that they do, to the rate hikes they're constantly pursuing, to the fact that they're making these decisions not for us, not for the planet, but for their profit margins. And then once we have succeeded in pushing those, getting powerful institutions to oppose the gas plant. Charleston County and the city of Charleston both have climate action plans that rely on the energy mix coming in, getting greener and greener. That sort of projects that like, hey, we'll be like sort of moving the right direction. And this plant would blow up those plans. So I think if we have enough people power, if there's enough of an atmosphere of discontent, we can actually get Charleston County and the city of Charleston to pass a resolution opposing. We can get these institutions like the colleges involved. There are lots of power players that we can sway, but it'll take a good grassroots campaign, and that's what we are ready to wage. So just talking about some of these actions right here. Petitioning, I think, is a really good first step, a really good base building tool. To me, the power of a petition is not the end product. If you get 1,000 signatures against the gas plant and you give it to Dominion Energy, they will not say, oh, we see the error of our ways, very good. But what you have done in that process is you've talked to 1,000 different people about this gas plant, gotten 1,000 different people on the mailing list. It's really good for sort of spreading the movement in the early days. So we have a petition that is both digital and physical, for those of you who prefer penmanship. And actually, one ask for y'all, just a sort of simple ask, is to please share the petition. The link is there. Maybe the link can be emailed as well.
Sure.
But just talking to some friends and family, saying, hey, if I'm concerned about this environmental project, would you mind signing this petition? Spreading the word is really helpful, especially in these early days. We will be tabling. One thing we're working on right now is getting a recurring table at the Poorhouse Sunday Brunch Farmers Market. It's tricky, but we figured out a way, we think. They're down to have like a compost table where we will get people's compost, educate them about composting, and so we'll actually be fulfilling a useful purpose, and we can have some information about CCC's activities in the gas plant. And we're also looking at just all these different markets going on around town to get a table at, spread the word, have conversations with folks, which is just, you can't get around having conversations with folks when you're doing organizing. We'll be canvassing. So we did some canvassing in downtown Walterboro, talked to a bunch of the folks there, worked with the businesses about the gas plant. Only about 1 in 4 people in the area had heard about this gas plant and pipeline. So there's a lot of work to be done, just getting the word out in the community there. Right now we're having some territory getting cut for some Walterboro neighborhoods. So it's an hour-long field trip, but then once you're out there, we plan on going door to door to some households that have been identified as probably interested in hearing what we have to say, and just spreading the word. There's also interesting possibilities of canvassing local businesses here, saying, hey, if you're willing to stand up for clean energy, here's some information you can put in your window, things of that nature. Direct action, public nonviolent mass demonstrations and protests of means push for gas. This is a space that we're really trying to push into. I think especially right now, in this political climate, sort of having these public demonstrations is really important. And I'm also really interested in really creative ways to do it. One of CCC's sort of founding tenets is that climate action should be joyful, should be playful, should be creative. And so I think there are ways of showing up that are really fun, really effective, and eye-grabbing, attention grabbing, get media coverage. So we're still talking about which actions exactly to do. We recently found out that the Coastal Carolina Fair that comes here in the late fall is sponsored by Dominion Energy. So thinking about an interesting action we could do at the fair, thinking about the Ferris wheel, maybe some signs, maybe a megaphone, we'll figure it out. But Dominion has offices in North Charleston. What we do is sit in outside their offices. There are all sorts of really, I think, impactful things we can be doing. So this is one thing we're developing if folks are interested in sort of this public action sphere. And then there are 2 events I want to talk about that we're planning. One is the trial of Dominion Energy. So this is going to be a public theater piece where we are putting Dominion on trial. There's an actor playing Dominion, an actor playing a judge, a quote-unquote lawyer who is sort of listing out their crimes, which are just things that they have done that have been really harmful to us ratepayers and to the planet. And then at the end, the crowd decides whether they're guilty or not guilty. This is the kind of action that's been done in other cities pretty effectively, and we think that'd be a good time.
Is this already planned? Do you know when this is gonna happen?
No, so we're developing this right now. Some lawyers with South Carolina Environmental Law Project are going to help us out with some of the legalese. I'm recruiting the actors right now, aiming for September. We have been talking about doing this in the summer, but we were like, oh, it's going to be very hot and people are so transitory during the summer that we sort of pushed back some of our events to the fall. So we're aiming for September right now. And actually, if anyone's interested in being a part of this planning process, we'd love to have you. We're also working on a folk protest on the river, tentatively called Songs to Save the Edisto. This will be a music event, sort of in the style of early 60s countercultural music, like Joan Baez protest music. We're aiming for October 11th right now as our date. And this will be to spread the word in sort of a joyful celebratory way, but also maybe do some fundraising for the campaign. And right now we're talking with getting a few more people involved, like Eddie Von Dog Green, and getting the bands lined up. But this is, again, going to be in October. There's a...
How solid is that day?
Solid-ish.
What Well, it's the same day as the Charleston Pride Festival.
That is good to know. Thank you. Yeah, it's really tricky. October in general is just slam packed. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And that's partially, so Ian Dillinger puts on music festivals and has a campsite like a mile away from where they want to build the gas plant. So Ian's going to be putting this on with us. He puts on local festivals like Navy Fest, Funky Pumpkin. The part of the October 11th day is working with his schedule. So we'll review other options, I think, just to see if there's anything that wouldn't have a notable conflict like that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm always trying to bring a more 60s countercultural energy into our actions, so this is something we're excited about. Any questions about the action side of things?
Do you have like a mailing list? Because we would very much like to push this information out to our membership.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that we're getting the updates and.
We do have a mailing list. Yeah. So I will make a note that everyone who signed up today on the petition sort of mark it as secular humanists, and make sure that the humanists are on the mailing list, and also we sort of like a list of people who signed the petition too. They'll get updates on this campaign. So by signing the petition, you're going to get updates on the campaign that's getting involved. Yeah.
Has the coalition done any direct action against Dominion before?
No. When CCC started, I thought, okay, we want to go after Dominion, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we sort of built the base in the coalition yet. And I think now is really the time. So a lot of our work has been campaigns for local progress. So the Charleston Climate Action Plan, that was a big campaign of ours that succeeded. We pushed for funding for the City of Charleston Climate Action Plan. Pushed for different public transportation projects. But this is the first time we've sort of directly gone after the utility. So yeah, this is the start of sort of a new phase for us. Yeah.
Just to follow up on Tucker's question, do you have a place on your website where people can sign up for the, because somebody who couldn't make it today, like we'd like to put that out to our whole membership so that.
Yeah, so we have the petition link, which is pretty easy, and we have a page on our website.
Oh, so you'll get a copy of everything who signs by the link as well?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, the digital link and this link will both add you to the list of people who signed the petition or are interested in getting updates.
Perfect.
About the.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, the gas plant and pipeline. Any other questions, comments, concerns, soliloquies, dreamings, musings?
So I want to ask something perhaps a little bit difficult. Can you pretend for a minute that you were a representative for Dominion coming to speak to us? What case would you make for why are you building the pipeline? Why is it needed? What would they say about, oh no, this is a good thing?
Yes, okay. We are in an energy crisis. South Carolina is facing a deficit of energy. And so we are going to be bringing you the energy you need as a service that we fulfill for you. And this would be a massive and capacious gas plant that would be giving you energy, turn on your lights for decades to come. What else would they say?
So I don't have gas, so how is it gonna help me as a consumer?
So it's an energy source. So there's the gas that comes into your home, then there's just gas power. So they're converting gas to electricity at this plant. So this would be electricity that comes to your home.
So is this gas plant using gas to turn turbines to make the electricity that we get?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say that's the central argument. The counter argument is you can get power from other places. I've been doing research. There are a couple of other states that have invested really big in battery technology in the last couple of years. Colorado brought online over 3,000 megawatts, so more power than this gas plant, of solar and battery capacity. Because the argument about solar has been, it's good when the sun's out, but it's so transitory. But battery technology has actually come a really long way, especially in the last couple of years. And so now, if we build the battery facilities, we can have the solar energy and store it and sort of have more functional baseload power from renewables. So Texas has been investing really big in battery facilities because they had those rolling blackouts because they had a mostly gas-powered grid. So just from a resilience perspective, they've invested in battery. So I think they're great examples of places, alternatives to get that energy. And also, solar can be built out in the 3-year process. From start to finish, it can take 3 years to put like a big new solar farm or a big new solar facility. So it's a lot fleeter in addressing the energy needs. That Dominion is citing is the reason, because there are data centers that are moving into South Carolina. I don't know if y'all been following that, but data centers for all the new AI stuff and whatnot. It's sort of the new gold rush, and South Carolina has been giving big incentives for data centers to come here. And one could argue that it's very low on jobs and very high in energy needs. So not really a good thing. If these data centers weren't coming in, it would not be so urgent to get new energy capacity. But we are.
And the water hogs too.
And they're huge water hogs, yeah.
Is there an actual energy crisis in South Carolina?
Not, so if there were not these data centers coming in, then we would have a much better projection. Because previously when they were talking about this gas plant, they were talking about building the gas plant to get the coal plants offline. We still have, I think it is at this point, 4 coal plants running in South Carolina. And they keep pushing back the retirement date. You know, it was 2028, now it's 2030, now it's 2032. And so the reason that they're saying let's get these gas plants online is so we can retire the coal plants and sort of like, you know, make up for that loss. But now what they're saying is just the number overall of demand is higher because of these like really power hungry data centers. And it's a little unclear ultimately how much power these data centers will need. You know, we think of AI as very power hungry. China recently had this AI come out that's like half as power hungry. It's such a developing story, you know, it's such a new technology that we don't know exactly how big the demand will be. We do need some new power. I would argue that the renewable sector could meet that need and not kill the planet, but we do need some new power, yeah.
Are there active projects to build more renewable energy in South Carolina?
There's a handful. Actually, we have a volunteer doing some research. And he has been pulling together, so 24, yeah, so this is the 2024 energy mix for Dominion. So as you can see, a ton of natural gas, a good bit of coal, a good bit of nuclear, and then the smallest bar is renewables, hydro and solar. They are building some renewables. You know, it's not that they're ignoring renewables in their portfolio, but they're not weighting towards it. They're not prioritizing it at all. They're sort of doing the bare minimum, I would argue.
What is that?
Profitability. Gas makes them more money. Because I think, it sounds like a really simple answer, but I honestly think it's pretty much just that.
What, I guess I'm wondering why gas makes them more money. Is it cheaper to produce?
It's a bulkier build out. Like a pipeline and gas plant is more infrastructure. And if you get a return on investment for building new infrastructure, you want to do that. And also like rooftop solar is really good for consumers, but doesn't do much for them at all.
Right.
The benefit of rooftop solar for them is like a peak demand thing. You have to have as much capacity as their peak demand, and a lot of different people getting solar power reduces that peak demand. Sort of a weedsy utility thing. But yeah, just in terms of the economics, they get more money in natural gas, even if we would benefit more from solar.
Our legislature is probably making it more profitable for them to do natural gas than.
Yeah, and also like federally, there are all sorts of incentives for oil and gas. They're trying to strip away renewable incentives.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
So is a natural gas plant better for the environment than a coal plant?
I don't think so. Again, there's been, I found numerous studies, because in the past, what they've done is they've looked at just the gas plant versus the coal plant, and the pollution coming out of that gas plant. And they've been like, oh, it's about like half the climate pollution. Because methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas, but it has a shorter half-life in the atmosphere. It balances out a bit. But what that doesn't do is look at the pipelines, and at each step of the way along the pipelines, there's leakage of methane to the atmosphere. And then when you frack, when you are blowing up sort of the rock with the little bubbles of methane in there, you're leaking methane. And when you look at the whole ecosystem of a gas, like the power that came from that gas plant versus the power that came from the coal plant, again, a lot of studies have it as polluting as coal for the climate, for atmospheric pollution.
So you mentioned that the county and the city have climate action plans. Do those have any ambitions towards building more renewable energy?
So they both have a clause in there or an action item in there about advocating on the state level for clean energy and climate solutions. Local climate action is most of our bread and butter, and those are mostly what the climate action plans are for, is, you know, building more public transportation, building more bike infrastructure, like having a green building program for the city, incentivizing green building practices. The compost program the city has is actually a pretty good climate action. But we're sort of a bit at the mercy of the state when it comes to energy. So the climate action plans have projections that relied on us not building a massive gas plant for things just gradually getting better. And they have an item in there about advocating. And I think actually part of our job as Charleston Climate Coalition is pushing them to actually advocate. Because they try to play nice whenever possible, and there's politics involved, and the Dominion's pretty powerful. So.
It's a good time to do it right now,
Yeah. I
because,
think so.
yeah, we have a good chair, so.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I was so pleasantly surprised. I went to the Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting, and they're really moving on their climate action plan. Councilman Middleton's really serious about that being a priority. I was like, oh, great. Cool. Yeah. So used to fighting the county. It's really nice to be on the side. Yeah. Was there anything else y'all? Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming,
Yeah.
appreciate you.